Hey everybody, welcome back to the Wolf Pit with another episode of What Are We Eating?
My bologna has a first name.
It's WOLFE
My bologna has a second name. It's
PIT,
I love to eat it every day. And if you ask
the people what they'll
say,
the Wolf Pit.
has a way with biology and A.
And if you're too young to remember that commercial, that's when life was great. Bologna was king, and when the streetlights came on at night, it was time to go home. But even though a lot of things in life have changed since then, and bologna may or may not still be the king of lunch meat to most people, but to some people, it will always be the king of lunch meats. And while bologna may always be the king of lunch meats, but if you happen to overindulge in too many of your adult beverages one night, and in your drunken stupor feel it's necessary to make a bologna sandwich consisting of a half a pound of bologna, a half a pound of cheese, fried onions, and fried mushrooms, bologna is going to be the king of lunch meats far longer than you're going to ever be around to make such an idiotic bologna and cheese sandwich again. Yet very delicious, so as usual, with everything in life, enjoy it in moderation, no matter how enjoyable it is. Especially when it comes to your bologna. These are words of wisdom that may prevent you from going blind one day. So in my local area, I picked up 4 of the cheapest brands of bologna that I could find. And when I say cheap, I'm not necessarily just referring to the price of the bologna, but the ingredients of the bologna as well. These really are 4 meat slurry concoctions. Now there's 2 different bolognas here. One of them that I grew up eating as a kid that I still enjoy as an adult. There's another one that Mrs. Wolfpit grew up eating as a kid and still enjoys eating as an adult. Now don't cheat and wait until the end of the video to find out what our favorite ones were and then comment. Comment now on which ones you think were our favorites. The first bologna we're going over today is Gwaltney's Great Bologna since 1870, which is America's #1 chicken bologna. This 1-pound package costs $2.18, and it's the original chicken bologna. Gwaltney says it's ideal for stacking on deli sandwiches. It delivers authentic, savory flavor, and it's ready to use. I'm no marketing genius, but instead of saying it's ready to use, like you're going to sand a piece of wood with it, a better saying may have been, it's ready to eat. Gwaltney bologna brings more smiles to the table. Here's the very small list of ingredients, and to be honest, I thought there'd be a whole lot more ingredients in bologna. There's 14 slices of Gwaltney bologna per pound. For every slice of Gwaltney bologna, there's 70 calories, 5 grams of total fat, 1.5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, a half a gram of polyunsaturated fat, 2.5 grams of monounsaturated fat, 15 milligrams of cholesterol, 390 milligrams of sodium, 3 grams of carbohydrates, no fiber, no sugars, and 3 grams of protein. The next bologna we're trying is this 1-pound package of Oscar Mayer bologna, which costs $2.48. It's made in the USA, made with quality meat and no fillers, with no artificial preservatives. Here's a list of ingredients in the Oscar Mayer bologna, and if you notice, it has chicken and pork. In this 1-pound package, there's 16 slices of bologna. For every slice of Oscar Mayer bologna, there's 80 calories, 7 grams of total fat, 2.5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 20 milligrams of cholesterol, 250 milligrams of sodium, 1 gram of carbohydrates, no fiber, no sugars, and 3 grams of protein. The next bologna we're trying is Fisher's bologna, which I've never heard of, but evidently I've been missing out because they're the smile-making people since 1904. And it doesn't say it on the package, but they're made Kentucky proud with turkey, chicken, and pork. This 16-ounce package is most expensive so far at $2.78. Fisher's makes their bologna the old-fashioned way with the perfect blend of spices, resulting in a flavor you love. Try our original, thick, and extra thick, which makes perfect frying bologna. No, I didn't miss out on their misspelling of bologna, but that's something they have to deal with their marketing department and their quality assurance department. I'm just here to try their products for you, the people, so you don't have to. Now here's the ingredients for the Fisher's bologna, which has turkey, chicken, and pork. There's 10 slices of bologna in the Fisher's 1-pound package of bologna. Each slice of the Fisher's bologna has 130 calories, 10 grams of total fat, 3.5 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 30 milligrams of cholesterol, 520 milligrams of sodium, 3 grams of carbohydrates, no grams of fiber, 1 gram of sugars, and 6 grams of protein. Now the next bologna we're trying is the Bar S Classic, made with chicken and pork. And as usual, I'm extremely transparent with you, the people. The package I got for the review was only the 12-ounce package because that's all I could find in my area. However, for a fair price and nutritional information review, I'm using the information from the 1-pound package. So that way, it's equal to the other 3 brands of bologna, which this 1-pound package of Bar S bologna only costs $1.36, which I guess you could consider a bargain when their 12-ounce package costs $1.18. Bar S Classic bologna is great for low-carb lifestyles, familiar favorites the whole family loves, and made with chicken and pork. And Bar S bologna is the sandwich staple. Here's the ingredient list, and it has chicken, pork, and if you notice, it has less than 2% of beef, which out of all 4 of the bolognas we're trying today, is the only one with any sort of beef in it. So speaking of beef, if you want to see an all-beef bologna review, leave me a corny comment, like show me the beef, and also don't forget to hit that like button. There's 14 slices in 1 pound of the Bar S bologna. Each slice has 90 calories, 7 grams of total fat, 2 grams of saturated fat, no trans fat, 30 milligrams of cholesterol, 370 milligrams of sodium, 1 gram of carbohydrates, no fiber, 1 gram of sugars, and 3 grams of protein. Now let's get the bologna out of the packages and give them a try. Starting with the Bar S bologna, followed by the Fisher's bologna, the Oscar Mayer bologna, and finally the Gwaltney bologna. Now there's something ironic about this video I didn't even notice until now. My daughter's fingernails are painted mustard yellow. Definitely a coincidence. One more irrelevant thing I just noticed on the bologna were the sizes. I wasn't going to take the time and measure them because the size difference is obvious. The Oscar Mayer bologna has the smallest diameter, which had 16 slices in the 1 pound package. The Gwaltney and the Bar S bologna seemed to have the same size diameter, and they had 14 slices per pound of bologna. The Fisher's bologna obviously has the largest diameter and only had 10 slices per pound of bologna. At the end of the day, you're still getting the same amount of bologna. So we tried the Fisher's bologna first. And here's a close-up picture, and it looks like an average piece of bologna. And I'm not sure why, but in the end, it made more sense to fold the piece of bologna in half to not necessarily take a bigger bite, but to get more bologna in your mouth. Myself included, let's get our minds out of the gutter, guys. My daughter's helping me with this video. And one thing she pointed out is if you turn the piece of bologna around and took the bite of the other side, it would look like the Batman symbol. The Fisher's bologna was okay. It didn't have a lot of texture or flavor, and it wasn't overly salty like some bolognas can be. It was overall a pretty good piece of bologna. Next we tried the Oscar Mayer bologna, and it looks pretty much the same as the Fisher's bologna, as well as pretty much all the other bolognas are going to look like, I'm sure. So again, we did the infamous bologna fold and took a bite. Now this bologna had a really good flavor, a really good texture, and wasn't overly salty. Next up is the Gwaltney bologna, and before we take a bite into it, does anyone know why some bolognas still have the casings around them and some don't? From you, the people, I only want incorrect, made-up answers. I don't want the real reason why some bolognas still have the casings around them and some don't. But if you can, just keep them PG-13. Last but not least, a PSA for this video. If you've never had it or you're unfamiliar with bologna with a red plastic ring around it, please ensure you remove it before you eat it yourself or feed it to your kids, or you fry it. It's obviously a choking hazard, but will also melt and burn if you fry it. After doing the bologna fold and taking a bite of the Gwaltney bologna, the texture of the Gwaltney bologna wasn't as good as the Oscar Mayer bologna, but it was better than the Fisher's bologna. The flavor was good, but it was a little bit salty. Finally, for the Bar S bologna. Now I just noticed something. The Gwaltney bologna and the Bar S bologna look very bland compared to the Oscar Mayer bologna and the Fisher's bologna. which you could see spices and minced up meats in it. So once we removed the red casing and did the bologna fold on the bar S bologna, we took a bite. And before I give you my response about the bar S bologna, I've heard horror stories about bar S bologna, about how bad it is. And that is absolutely, simply not true. Bar S bologna is not bad at all. I'm not even sure if it's possible to be sincere and sarcastic in the same sentence, but I'm gonna try it. Like I said, bar S bologna is not bad, but it's also not good. I'm really not trying to be a smartass, but I am also 100% always honest with you, the people. Whipped cream has more texture and packing peanuts has more flavor than bar S bologna. Now, any true-blooded bologna aficionado knows that you can't do a bologna review without frying it. All the bologna was fried in the same pan at the same time over medium-high heat for 2 minutes per side. All of the uncooked pieces of bologna are in the same position they were when we started. Now, we started off with the uncooked Fisher's bologna first, so we're going to try the fried piece of Fisher's bologna first. And I simply cannot make this stuff up. Should we assume Fisher's uses breast meat in their bologna? So after the bologna fold and the taste bite, the Fisher's improved a little bit. They do say you eat with your eyes first, so I guess it's true. The flavor intensified, the texture tightened up a little bit, and it actually gained a little saltiness, which was good. Next, we tried the fried Oscar Mayer. And as you could tell, it started to get that nice crispiness on the edges that most people love on their fried bologna. But you can also tell it appears to be drier on the outside than the other 3 bolognas. So after the bologna fold and the bite, this was a pretty satisfying, typical piece of fried bologna. The texture was great, the flavor was great, and it was salty, but it wasn't overly salty. Next, we tried the Gwaltney. And if you noticed, the Gwaltney had the most uniform browning of all 4 bolognas. So we did the bologna fold and took a bite. And the Gwaltney was by far the saltiest of all 4. However, it was still pretty good. It had a good flavor and a good texture. But like I said, it was pretty salty. And finally for the bar S bologna. Now let's see if frying the bar S bologna made it any better in texture or flavor. Out of all 4 bolognas, it browned the least. So after the bologna fold and the taste test, there was very little taste or texture improvement for the bar S bologna. And as far as all the horror stories I heard about bar S bologna, that's hogwash. Because how can something with no texture or flavor be bad? Or good for that matter? So with that being said, even though there was nothing wrong with it, bar S was my least favorite bologna. The Gwaltney bologna, right out of the package, was pretty good. It had a decent texture, decent flavor, but it was a little salty. Once it was fried, it was really salty. Too salty for me. The Fisher's bologna, right out of the package and fried, were pretty good both ways. But after frying, it firmed up the texture, added some flavor without adding a ton of saltiness, and was just overall a pretty good piece of bologna. The Oscar Mayer bologna, right out of the package and fried, had great flavor, great texture, and wasn't overly salty. In my opinion, it's the perfect example of affordable, American, cheap bologna. And Oscar Mayer bologna has been my favorite bologna since I was a kid to this day. And Gwaltney Great Bologna has been Mrs. Wolfpit's favorite bologna since she was a kid to this day. Don't forget to let me know if you want to see an all-beef bologna review. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.